the added value is, yes, this is about economy and also within politics and what happened with the parliament, which is quite important. So to add ethics to this is something which is important, values and objectives. But let me ask you something, because I'm asked very often, traveling around in Europe, very often in times of elections, I'm asked about this, and then it happened also here in Britain, that say, okay, we as Muslims, do we have to support the Labour Party, the Lib Dem now, which is a rising, is the leader who is now getting the spotlights, and then also the Conservative. So would you, as someone who is a leader, who is working at the grassroots level, who is, who was the chair, now you are the vice chair of the Christian Muslim Forum in this country, would you advise the Muslims to go in one direction, or what would be the political answer to a very civic question? I think to whom should I support?
That wise saying that don't put all your eggs in one basket is very important. And I think what we need to do is, as you said very earlier on, we need to look at the competency of the candidates. And on Friday, when we had this hustings and we had the 3 candidates, I could really tell who is worthy of my vote. And that is really important. So competency is very important, of that individual. And will he represent you and your values as best as, in this democratic system you could have. So that's first thing I think we need to do. I think Muslims have to really spread themselves out. We really have to work with everybody who works for the betterment of the first of our country, but I think who is also good to Muslims. And I think amongst the 3 parties, Muslims will be able to tell that who is really more Muslim friendly. I think that's an important point, who is more Muslim friendly. We have to really look at that at the end of the day.
But would you contradict me or be against me when I say, look, my answer to this question is, first, make your mind. You are an adult and you are a citizen. And then you have principles. You know what you should stand for. You have your own ethics. And sometimes it could be that one party is embodying something which is better than another party or a trend, a political trend. So you can go for that. And sometimes it's a question of a person with more competency or more integrity and trying his or her best. So I would say, first, you may have your conviction, but don't ask me to guide you in something which is based on your intellect, your personal ijtihad as to your worldly affairs, which is also, once again, what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said. And then go ahead. You are an adult and you have to decide. And then sometimes it's a question of person, because you can have an individual who is understanding. And I would say, yes, to be Muslim friendly, it's important, but to be principled in your attitude as a politician is something which is important.
And I think there's another factor we should remember, particularly in areas where there is a dense Muslim population, that Muslims somehow make some sort of collective decisions as well. I think as minority we have to be wise in how we use our vote and make it as impactful and effective as possible. And I think that's where the Muslim leadership really needs to be very wise in guiding. I mean, that's what we need to do. We need to be guiding. And you see, the other thing is
guiding in which way? Just give an example of this, because some of the people who would listen to you would say, we got it. What you are talking about is a community vote, and you want to lobby the politicians, and this is what you want. Would you agree with this?
I think that is, yes, certainly. I think we have to do that. And it depends on how passionate you are about a particular cause. For example, if I want, in my area, I want a Muslim school. Okay, so I'm not going to be bothered about which party it is. I'm going to be looking for which candidate is going to support my objective of helping me.
So what would you answer?
Sometimes it becomes a very single issue.
Yes.
And I think every community will have that. I mean, there will be areas where immigration will be very important.
But it's all about a balanced approach.
It is,
because we have some of our brothers and sisters and leaders at the grassroots level. They go for that. But this is not enough. You can go for your school, that's fine, but you have to have principles, and you belong to your principles. If someone can buy you with a mask at a school, he will he will sell you tomorrow for other things.
I agree with you, but I think that is tactical. And I think Muslims have to be both. You know, I think we have to be both strategically minded, but also tactical. And I think that is what is the beauty of democracy in a way, because after 5 years, if you're not happy with what is done or not done for you or she, then you can change.
This is about accountability.
It is, yes. So I think it's also important, yes, to be very principled, but at the same time, I think pragmatic. You know, this is after all, this is not about your iman, all right? It's not going to determine your, iman and faith. This is about how you run your society and how you achieve certain short-term goals sometimes.
Yes, I agree with this, but still, I have a problem with it. Could sometimes be problematic with some of the leaders who are going too far with this. So it's really important to say, okay, look, if we have an added value here, an added, a contribution as for our ethics is really, okay, that's fine. We know what politics is. Politics is to be strategic, is to be tactical, to know the principles, the purposes, and to know how to deal with power. But at the same time, if we want to come with something which is a bit new, is not only to think about our interests, but also about principles that we want to promote. And something which also it's quite important in Muslim majority countries, we are dealing with such a problem with corruption and corrupt people. Let us try also with our presence to say we are not playing all the game the same way.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right that we need to be principled. But I believe that certainly the three major parties do have very strong principles, which are very Islamic to a great extent. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we have to accept this reality that we live in a world where there are people might have different labels, Christianity or Judaism and Hinduism, but there are universal moral values which we share. And I think that is what is important, and that is why we are part of the society and we want to be called British Muslims, because we believe that there are universal values. Otherwise, I don't think any sane and a practicing Muslim would be able to live. So there is that. I think there are those universal values already embodied in the political system here. And of course, I think what we need to be doing is we need to be a voice. I think Muslims need to be a voice that says morality and spirituality and religiosity and piety have a very important part in our lives, and we would like to see that in our British society as well. It's a challenge.
Yes, it's a challenge, and I think that, thank you for that. I think that during our discussion, three main points are, we can highlight three main points. The first one really that we said is that there is no contradiction between the Islamic principles and the democratic system, and what you just said right now, it's we're not going for democracy by forgetting Islam. We are going for democracy in the name of the Islamic principles, and democracy is a political system which is a means, and then to use the means to get the purposes or the objectives. And the second point, which was quite important, is really for the Muslims to be much more involved, but not only in the name of Islam against or for something which is specifically Islamic. And the example that you gave was quite interesting, with all the parties saying we ask them to, for a pledge on immigration and also on environment. And this is something which is important. This is the added value when it comes to all this discussion, because really in Britain today, when we have to speak about something, it's really about the environment, it's all really about immigration, and not only, of course, about foreign policies. And you said something which was quite important, is that for Muslims to be involved in the parliament is something which is important. The last point is, at the end also, is yes, politics is about interest, but it's also about principles, and it's all a question of a balancing approach, which is per se a challenge. Well, that's all we have time for. I would like to hear your views to today's subject. So please email us at islamandlife@presstv.co.uk. That's islamandlife@presstv.co.uk. I would like to thank my guest, Dr. Musharraf Hussain. Thank you for being with us today, and I hope to see you next week, inshallah.